forth. So without further ado, I also would like to introduce a fantastic leader, someone that I became friends with early on, and I believed in me, but we had a friendship as I worked on Workforce Pipeline, and we both worked to advance initiatives here in Southern Nevada. Many of you know her back when she was at UNLV, but she is not at UNLV. She is now at NAOP, which is having a name change. I would like to welcome a great friend and a great leader, Jamie Schwartz.
Thank you, Diego. That was so nice, and it's nice to see so many familiar faces and some new friends I'll meet today. I am at NAOP, and for those of you who do not know, NAOP is the Commercial Real Estate Development Association, and so I represent the commercial real estate developers here in Southern Nevada. And most previously, because I just took this new role in January, I came from UNLV at the Office of Economic Development, and I also had another role. I was helping to develop out the university's research and technology park. So a lot of the things that I'm focused on during the course of my career have been building businesses. I only worked at UNLV for about 6 years. Prior to that, always an entrepreneur, always built my own companies, always was in business development and growth. So in 2000, a couple of partners and I started a clinical research company called Affiliated Clinical Research. They still exist today. It's a local site management organization, and they run trials here in Nevada, in Albuquerque, and in Phoenix, Arizona. They're a regional player in the clinical trial space. They still exist today. I exited roughly 2015, although I still did some consulting for a while. And I launched a different business, valuing companies. And I got really interested in the value of particularly medical practices. I'm sure there's a lot of folks in this room who are familiar with a time when there were a lot of larger outside groups and they were coming in and making offers to buy private practices. And private practitioners are really expert at understanding how to run a medical practice, but it wasn't necessarily clear to them how much their practice was worth and whether they were getting the full value in those transactions. So just because we worked with so many physicians in the trial company, I had those kind of like cocktail hour conversations and got really interested in the value of a medical business. And that led me to understand a lot more of the ins and outs that the practitioners were dealing with in managing the types of businesses they had, and beyond practitioners, even laboratory companies and diagnostic companies, all of the above. And I had a lot of fun for a lot of years, actually, helping companies grow, determining their value. I like to use regression analysis. So for all of the nerds in the room, you'll appreciate this, where we can take a look at all of the elements of value of a company. And they would give me a time horizon. I'm ready to exit my company in 2 years and in 6 months sometimes if they would come to me way too late, but they would come and find 6 months versus 2 years, depending on what we wanted to move the value to, because by the way, about 90% of the time when I would tell them the value of their company, it wasn't really what they were hoping for, right? There was a gap and we wanted to close the gap before we actually make a transaction, if we can. And so we can move certain variables if you have certain time horizons and make a real impact in the base value of the company for a buyer. And I really enjoyed doing that. And I really got to know a lot of the life sciences and medical companies around town during that time. I developed a passion for how challenging it can be to operate a healthcare company here in our state, and just how siloed everybody was and disconnected from one another. So when I came to UNLV, and part of my job was to help unite the ecosystem, I was a little bit familiar with what plagued the ecosystem and where we could maybe make some differences. And I think we've made some strides, and I'd like to make bigger strides. And over the last several years, I've met so many of you who share that passion. And that's what BioTech Vegas is really all about. It's about trying to bring this ecosystem together and make sure that we know each other and are a little more cohesive of a community. So I think the most important thing to say is BioTech Vegas is not some kind of amorphous idea of how we might build this regional ecosystem for these vague goals. I am not into that at all. I'm a person that understands how busy every single person is in the room and the folks that we want to be involved. And so if you're going to be putting your time into something or contributing to something, then it needs to have an impact on your business. That's the way that I operate, and I expect that's the way everybody else operates too. So what is the purpose of BioTech Vegas for you? Everybody in here is already kind of building the future of this ecosystem, right? You are delivering care and conducting research. You're developing technologies and running labs and scaling companies. So I don't need to tell you why life sciences matter, but what we do want to talk about are what conditions determine whether or not your work thrives or whether it struggles here in Southern Nevada. And there are some things that can really affect your ability to succeed, right? We're talking about clinical outcomes and research translation, funding for trials, and talent pipelines, infrastructure constraints, partnerships that actually work. How do you actually put the partnerships together? National competitiveness, and I think really important and maybe more unique to this market than some others, reputation and credibility. So just a quick show of hands. How many of you feel like Southern Nevada is on the verge of something significant in life sciences? Do many of you get the feeling of that? Are you just rolling around? No? How many of you feel like we still face some pretty real structural barriers? Yeah. So let's talk about some challenges that you guys are all going to recognize here, right? We're talking about recruiting nationally and losing candidates and explaining Nevada's capabilities repeatedly to folks and searching for partners that you suspect exist, but you're not sure, and building infrastructure from scratch. And these are not failures of any of our science or our medicine or even our business acumen or how we perform in life sciences. They're really just failures of ecosystem coordination. And I don't even think, I hate to say it as a failure, because whose job is it to bring the ecosystem together? In the past, whose job has it been? I mean, we could point to a few groups, like maybe we want the Governor's Office of Economic Development to do that, or maybe we want a group like LVGEA, which is the Las Vegas Global Economic Alliance, to help bring the ecosystem together. But maybe it's the Vegas Chamber. But life sciences, honestly, hasn't been that robust of an industry here in Southern Nevada. And so there's been other things that are shiny and get the attention of the people who are putting their money and their time toward advancing a certain industry. And life sciences just hasn't in the past really risen to their attention. But I only think it's because all of us are working really hard with our heads down in what we do. And so we aren't necessarily focused on networking and getting to know each other and making sure that as a vocal group, where our needs and what we need to advance is known. So I think that's part of what we want to accomplish by bringing everybody together with BioTech Vegas. So let me ask this. Are any of these ideas resonating with any of you in the room? Yeah, okay. Does anybody want to share a quick example maybe of difficulty recruiting talent or some challenge with limited space, wet lab space, or specialized space that we're looking for? Anybody feeling a lot of constraints that maybe they feel like is relevant to share with the room? Because we can kind of dive into it if we want to. Rosemary, do you have any examples you want to share?
I would just say one thing that was positive. We had NVIDIA in town, and we were actually over at the Roseman campus and just explaining about the build out that they're going to be doing. So that was very exciting to them. I found that to be really beneficial.
So Rosemary took my challenge and she raised the bar and gave me a really positive outcome that's been happening recently. So if you couldn't hear her in the back, what she mentioned is that a delegation from Southern Nevada of business owners and some representatives from some other organizations, they went to California to visit NVIDIA's headquarters and speak with different industry experts within NVIDIA about what's next and what could be a collaboration for our region. And That was a really unique experience because if any of you have ever had to corral a whole bunch of type U's together, it's not easy, right? You all have super busy schedules and a lot going on, and trying to coordinate that is a big effort. But I think it speaks to the interest and the significance of talking to these super cutting edge, front of the industry type of companies about looking at Las Vegas and Southern Nevada as a viable place to do business and to partner and engage with. So that was a really great example of something that's going right. And that's, I think, due to us having more conversations as a group and becoming more connected to one another.
I think the biggest problem that I face in most of the room is timely access to imaging care is almost criminal in this town. You cannot get through the referral system with timely dealing with getting an essential imaging issue. I'd like to hear what people are doing in this room to address that issue.
That's a perfect example. It's a
Including
great
my son.
example. Well, does anybody want to respond to that? Do we have any solutions or ways we're approaching that?
Part of the problem, follow up on Ernie, is the hospitals do an excellent job getting paid fairly, but most of the other medical providers in most communities, the baseline's a Medicare rate and above. In Las Vegas, it is Medicare significantly minus. So attracting talent, knowing that they're not going to get paid well, is this community and I've been part of it, has always kept the reimbursements so low to providers that's, in my opinion, one of the big hurdles.
That's another really great example.
Are we underpaying?
That's where, well, if I could pile on to that, right? So you mentioned that the hospitals get reimbursed very well. As far as visibility, when it comes to us bringing a voice to legislators and to government to address these issues, right? When you cast the net, only 2 large hospital systems show up to the table and are willing to participate. I mean, you look at the reimbursements, and every legislator I speak with, yeah, doctors don't show up. They just don't show up, right? And that's seen in dentistry where it has grown, but the visibility is huge in that from the lack of the collaboration and community aspect.
Right. Well, and that's what we're seeing too. And so one of the ambitions of BioTech Vegas is to be an advocacy outlet. We're still in the foundational stages of building how that's going to look. Is that going to be something that we reach out to other partners in the community who maybe have the lobbying relationships and things like that, and we let them do that and we just express our voice to them? Or maybe we find that there's a real demand amongst our group that we actually want to be messaging directly some of our needs. And so we'll make some of those decisions as we go forward, which is why we really want to encourage you to come to our next meeting, which I will have on the last slide, our date and the time and where you can be. So I hope that you'll come to that and you can help us make some of those decisions about how do we really want to represent the voice of this region, because this is a great opportunity. So coordination is not an economic development concept alone. No offense, Tom. It is a clinical research and commercialization accelerant, right? It is an ecosystem infrastructure accelerant. As we coordinate and as we build power of our collective voices, it will make a huge difference in what we're able to achieve together. And we're talking about research funding competitiveness and scaling. The way that we can elevate our region by coming together with one united voice and actually letting the outside world as well as each other understand that we're serious about developing this life sciences industry. It'll help us to attract partners. I don't know, I know Tom is going to relate to this, and I know Rosemary will relate to it, and probably Diego as well, but I'd love to see how many others of you have had some challenge in working with external partners to come to Las Vegas or do business with Las Vegas because of a reputational challenge or a lack of understanding about what kind of business we actually do here. It's not so much that it's necessarily it's the gaming and the glitz. It's not that. It's just that nobody thinks of this as a life sciences hub. And so when we want to attract an anchor, let's say, to really develop a lab space with some co-working facilities for startup companies to really take flight. And we're trying to find somebody to do that downtown in the Las Vegas Medical District. It's a challenge to let the world know that this is a very serious market with some very, strong momentum in key areas of science and technology that are worthwhile to come and develop. Messaging that has been a challenge for us out here. And I would love to hear your thoughts. Yeah.
I mean, as it relates to that, speaking from a recruitment perspective, physicians, having recruited physicians for the last 20 years, the school system is a major deterrent. You know, you can get past the glam and the glitz of the strip and all that, but when you have a school system that performs as poorly as the Clark County School District does, and I say that, sorry, Tom, I know it has nothing to do with you, you just insure them. I mean, I'm a product of the school system, so, you know, to see what has happened and trying to recruit physicians, you know, we talk about growing physicians and keeping them here, there's two problems. That's the first one. The other problem is we don't have the fellowships in the high-paying modalities that the physicians want to be.
Agreed. Why not, right? I mean, there are barriers we could dive into, each one of them being a topic for the next Games of Thrones for, a year. But we can tackle some of those things by being a collective voice and also talking to one another and recognizing what each other needs, right? We have groups that have the ability to move and move the needle on a lot of these points that we're making. But maybe they're just not connecting with us in the right way. They want to make a difference in our community. They've come into the community to build and be a larger part of the ecosystem. How do we make sure that they're connecting with us in a way that's meaningful to us? I think that's a big question.
One of the things that I've seen over the years is oftentimes the out-of-town companies really don't find and of course I'm biased, the business I'm in, a good person to represent them. I'll give you the perfect example. There's a lot of ACOs that want to come into town and do business. Larry and I started one back in 2012, and Larry's still the CEO of it, and it is one of the top 10 in the country. So you got all these people coming in thinking they can compete with my old fart friend there, Larry, about 50 years in the business, but and they can't. The part you talked about, collaboration from the outside to the inside, is very important, because you're going to find people who have done it here. A lot of times, with all due respect, the outside companies are extremely arrogant. Example of a company probably getting in trouble is the Best Rad, the preeminent radiology company. They're imploding 100% because they had bad outside management. That happens all the time.
Yes.
One example, and I don't know if you have an answer for it, but it seems like sometimes the government says we want economic development, it's a great thing, and they're directly counter to it. I can think of three specific examples. One was when a major bank / trade council wanted to come to state, and they found that the state, within the Secretary of State, the Securities Division didn't understand securities. It was staffed by people who thought security, like they wanted to be cops and make this stuff up and not trading, and then other things were like lowering the state threshold for a accredited investor to the point where anybody can qualify. If you got a job, you can make private investments where you use like money. So that's also scared people off. And then we really missed out on this trend too, where we've seen these founder-led companies that are publicly traded, like Elon Musk's companies, Dropbox, and a number of others that are reincorporated from Delaware to here. But we lost out on Meta, which is like one of the apex examples of that, because our Attorney General just couldn't let up with that social media litigation. So what are you seeing, and are there opportunities to intervene with the government so that our regulators are more involved? Because as much as I enjoy Dr. Edgeworth, the people aren't happy with her, she's up for a referendum on that every 2 years. We don't really have that luxury with people who are appointed by the governor or free from that political appointment process that don't understand this.
Right. Those are great points. And a couple of things I'm thinking of. One is that we've thought about the interconnectedness of so many different people in different areas of the state, right? Not just working in life sciences, but we need to have a consortium or a group that contains financial experts and people who are current in the financial industry. We need attorneys who can help us and guide us in the things that we need. We need to be connected to our municipal partners and the state government and the county. We need to make sure that we have connections to federal agencies like the National Institute of Health or the National Science Foundation, and regularly be in touch with them so that we're connected to what is available to us, and so we can make sure we're presenting ourselves in the way that they most want to see. And one of the things that we thought about when we designed the BioTech Vegas kind of the governance structure was to create advisory councils that would hit various areas of interest and professional expertise, and for those advisory council members to then help guide our board and our membership, and then participate as we need them and call upon them in various cases. So we have an innovation advisory council, and in that advisory council, we've got folks like JP Morgan and the new Desert Forge Ventures and other funding sources and groups that are resources to innovation companies. We have the Champions Council, which actually consists of the companies that are starting up and getting going, to early stage technologies to fully thriving companies, champions of business and industry. We have our Community Advisory Council, and the Community Advisory Council consists of the economic development offices from all of the municipalities, the county, our governor's office of economic development, and then some key organizations that are in our space to help us advise. And then we have our Academic Advisory Council. So we have every university in the region belonging to it, for all the NSHE higher education institutions, as well as Roseman University, which has been beyond supportive of what we're doing. So for Jeff Talbot, who's not here, I'll give him a huge shout out. Jeff Talbot with Roseman University is absolutely fantastic champion of this ecosystem. Roseman is building out its healthcare campus. It's building its footprint in our community, and they are doing the hard work of getting to know all the different stakeholders and even putting money and effort behind it, hosting all of the meetings that we've had for BioTech Vegas, putting out refreshments. So again, definitely worth your time to come by, because we take care of you when you show up. But really just such a fantastic partner to the ecosystem. So even though he's not here, huge shout out to Jeff Talbot, wish he was here. I see a couple questions. So in the very back right there. Oh.
An inadequate school system is
Oh, hi.
a good Larry, question, best person to ask in the room. Are we really underpaying specialists in this community compared to other metropolitan areas?
Does anybody have any thoughts on that? Are we really underpaying specialists in this community? He's wondering, if you have input on whether we are underpaying specialists in our community as compared to other municipalities.
I have an opinion.
Yeah.
We definitely underpay physicians. We underpay physicians across the board, I believe. And we have ourselves in a challenge that I could relate the challenge to Brian's comment about the school district, right? We're unhappy with the school district, but we don't have taxes, so we don't fund the school district, and then we're unhappy that we don't get a product, right? So that's just not, I'm not saying that's how we have to work together to move it in the right direction. We do the same thing. We underpay physicians, and we're either unhappy about the quality or we're unhappy about the overutilization, but we cause the problem. We're the ones that cause the problem. So what I love about your group, what I love about what you're doing, is you're bringing so many different voices to the table, and I don't see that enough in Las Vegas. When you look at the people that you have involved, of course you have a lot of the biotech, biosciences, but you have community representatives in all these sectors, which I love that you are doing that. It's hard, because I just heard you talk about it now, and me seeing your meetings and understanding the people that you invite and the people that participate. I know you're really onto something, but it's really hard to convey it even in this presentation, how important this initial kind of building the champions that are going to help us to move the mark, because every issue, education, healthcare, these are big, heavy community issues, right? There's not a simple fix. It's us that we're going to collectively fix it.
It is us. It is us, Tom. That's it. And so you heard it from Tom. I'm underselling this, okay? I'm underselling this. It's very valuable. We have one more question back there.
Yes, so I'm actually very curious what type of biotech companies you target. They also need the investment community that they will be interacting with on an ongoing basis to develop relationships. They also need the access to healthcare system to conduct their clinical trials.
Yes.
So that's one group. A different group is obviously a bigger biotech that's already established.
Yes.
They come here and create the headquarters or manufacturing plants. And the needs of these different players are very different.
They are very different, yes.
Who are we targeting with this initiative?
This is a great question, and you've teed me up for my next slide, so I appreciate that. Thank you very much. One of the first things that we're starting with is we're doing some asset mapping, because we're not even sure who is here and all of the different types of companies that are here, and not just companies, but lab space and expertise and specialized equipment that we might have, whether it's on a campus or whether it's in one of your businesses. And all of these capabilities together will tell us a story about how well positioned we are to move in certain areas. I think what's happened in the past is we've had some excitement around a company or an initiative or something that's sort of a fad, like people start to catch on to the word AI. So now we're going to do AI in healthcare. But like, what does that mean? And how does that actually apply to us in Southern Nevada? And who's poised to deploy or employ those types of technologies in this community, right? Those are really strong questions that we want to know the answer to. And I don't know of any other resource that's done a comprehensive asset map of our region looking specifically at life sciences. There have been a few things that have been done that we'll use as foundational tools. Recently, the Nevada System of Higher Education just did a full inventory of all of its expertise, lab space, equipment, but they even didn't look at it from as comprehensive a point of view as maybe we can, which is to say there's sometimes equipment that was acquired to do a specific thing, but that equipment can do a multitude of other things, and particularly in combination with some other technologies that might exist. And so to put that picture together, we need to find out what's here and who's got it and how are they looking to grow and what are their own goals. And putting those things together will tell us a story about who should we be looking to attract. And that's not our job, by the way. So I'm not replacing Tom at Clark County, whose job it is to go out and look for companies to attract to our region. And the same thing for LVGEA. This is a tool to help Tom and a tool to help the Governor's Office of Economic Development and to help LVGEA, as well as a tool to help all of us to maximize our relationships in our own community and further what we're doing. And that looks like researchers finding collaborators, right? Companies finding their capabilities, clinicians that are connecting to innovation, reducing duplication, and talent finding opportunity. That's how that looks. Now, asset mapping is not a directory, and what it really is doing is it's answering these really high value questions, right? Where are underutilized capabilities? Where are the gaps that are costing us trials and grants and business? And what do investors misunderstand about our market? How can we recruit with more confidence? And like I said, making sure we're not duplicating efforts that are already being done. Okay. I think we're running a little close on time, so I'm going to skip through a couple of these real quick here. But I think we're making it clear. These are high value outcomes that we're after, right? Things that are actually matter to you and your business. We want to see more professional success for everybody in this room and the ability to connect with each other more easily. If you're doing a really big initiative and somebody else in this community can connect to that to maximize what you're doing, we need to make that easier for us to connect on those levels. I mean, there's some real basic stuff. And then we can talk even more deeply about what kind of high technology science and development do we really want to be focused on. When Nevada looks coordinated, when our Nevada, yeah, I'm born and raised. I for sure have that one down. When our community looks coordinated, your grant proposals look stronger, your companies look more scalable, and your recruitment conversations get a lot easier. So if this coordination platform works well, I'm curious in this room, and we've got some answers so far, but what What would you want it to make easier for you? What matters to you out of a collaboration platform like this? And I'll give you some examples, so we can even raise hands if we want. Is finding collaborators to do business an important priority for us in here? Maybe recruiting talent, we've heard that from a bunch of people so far, so I think that's a big deal that we want to make easier for us. Access to facilities. So how do you engage? Tom.
I don't have an answer to your question, but I was thinking about it in context of the asset mapping that you're doing, because every time I go out in this community and meet with somebody, I'm always surprised about the capabilities that exist that I'm not aware of. And especially as the community has grown, right? Because we used to know everybody.
Yeah.
And we knew what was our but now there's a lot of hidden talent and resources. So how is the asset map gonna manifest for us to even start to understand that and maybe expand it in our industry?
Thank you for that question. So the best way that you can engage and have this be valuable to you is to help us build this asset map. We're starting with, we've got a website that's biotechvegas.org. It's partially under construction. The old version is still up. You can enter yourself as a professional and you can enter your company. And in that entry space, you're able to enter some key specifics about your organization. The website will be changing in about 4 days to something that's really searchable. So as everybody enters their information, each company that's in there will have a little page that sort of pops up that represents your organization. We'll make sure we have all of the correct authorizations so you can put your right logos in there. You can connect us to your comms teams if that's kind of the way that your organization functions, and we'll make sure that we have everything correct for you there. We'll list your key professionals there. Each one will come up like as a little pop-up card, and we just want to enter all of this data. It will also be searchable so that if somebody pops in, let's say they want to see, do we have an fMRI, in this valley that is available? Then they can pop that in and they'll find out, guess what? UNLV's brain health department has just put one in and they're looking to have some outside users come and take up time in that, so then they would be able to understand that accessibility and capability of the ecosystem. And that's just one. You could get really complex. You could see that it would be advantageous for people who are looking for places to place clinical trials, right? Looking at the rest of the ecosystem, how well it can support maybe a grant application that we have in, or a recruitment application, right? So biotechvegas.org, I will send out through Diego as well the updated website once it gets there so we can make it easy. We have a board of directors that is pretty activated and pretty excited, so I think that you'll all expect to see some of our representatives calling you up, knocking on the door and just saying, hey, can we get a little more information about your business so we can put it in here, or what you're specialized in or your expertise. That way we can add that into our full asset map. We are raising some funds to actually do a facilitated asset mapping through UNR and UNLV. But even without that, we're getting started before we even wait for raising the money on that. So the biggest thing that you can do is just sign up into the website, or you can go to the LinkedIn. It's also BioTech Vegas is the group on LinkedIn. That way you can stay connected, and when we're asking for information or trying to connect you to things, then that'll make it easier for us to be able to reach you. We have a really unique opportunity here to design a coordinated ecosystem, and it's not something that somebody from the outside is going to do from us. And like you just heard me say, I'm born and raised here. I've seen every outside company and every outside advice come in over the years, and we are at a point now where we can do a lot ourselves. We know what we want and we know how we want to get there. We just need to coordinate with each other so that we can make it happen, and that's all this organization is out to do. We have our next meeting on Thursday, May 14th at 5:30 p.m., 5:30 to 7 at the Roseman University campus in Summerlin. So if you haven't been there, it's right off of Town Center in the 215. If you show up a little early, if you show up between 5 and 5:30, there are refreshments out. You can mix and mingle with other people who are there. It's a really excellent crowd. We are a group of professionals, industry leaders. These are decision makers at their companies. and people who are actually working toward making things happen in the ecosystem. So I promise you it's worth your time, and we guarantee that we will emphasize making it worth everyone's time by making sure we understand what you want and then helping make BioTech Vegas coordinate those things together. The website, again, is biotechvegas.org. My email, which is probably kind of hard to see, but if you'd like to email me, I welcome it. It's jamie.schwartz@biotechvegas.org. The LinkedIn group is BioTech Vegas. That's easy to find. So does anybody have any questions for me before we wrap it up?
So just as Bruce said, I'm an old fart in the room here. If I were in a doctor's office or in the hospitals, biotech means nothing to me. So if I'm trying to figure out how to coordinate our clinical people into this, I would never search for biotech. I think the name's inappropriate. So if you're trying to get biochemical clinical research, biotech doesn't hit that spot.
I hear that. I hear what he's suggesting, in case you couldn't hear, is that he thinks maybe the name of BioTech Vegas is a bit of a misnomer and isn't necessarily intuitive to everyone in our space, that they should look it up. And I don't totally disagree with that. The organization was formed before I came on board, so I kind of took over something that was really generously built up and put together. And so our challenge and our emphasis will be then on communicating what we really are about and making sure that the community knows who we are and we're connected enough that we can overcome that hurdle of a name that's a little bit, off. Sure.
Can I just comment that Las Vegas in the last 2 years has done more kidney transplants per capita in this country. It was in the Review Journal a couple of months ago.
Las Vegas has done more kidney transplants in the last 2 years than any other metro per capita. Okay, per capita. That's an impressive figure. Let's go, Las Vegas. Gina.
Jamie, I think that the story that you and Rosemary told about showing up to, I think it was the NVIDIA event and having some preparation, I think is worth telling in this group, because it does, I feel like there's a pall of like, we can't get our acts together. And if we could get our acts together, then the school district will drag us down, all these different things. Like, that was really inspirational for me, who's like relatively outside of the field.
Rosemary, do you want to share a little more about what the experience was like going to visit NVIDIA? And
yeah, absolutely. A group of well-intentioned, some of them in the room, Tom was there as well, chose to go up to NVIDIA. Thank you. Chose to go up to NVIDIA, a number of different industries. One of them very heavily represented was healthcare, led by Tom here. So we had UMC, Intermountain Health, and GM. But we also had a number of other industry sectors, mining, gaming mining, the test site was there, Clark County Water Reclamation District. And the whole point was, and also some sports, the athletics, and then the racing team that's here as well, and Switch. And so we were there for a day and a half, and the whole point was that there's a big concern about AI. And does Nevada have a strategic AI initiative? We're not talking about, eliminating jobs, right? We're talking about what is the infrastructure that can be in place to support things like BioTech Vegas as we move into this next generation technology, as we not just look to accelerate workflows, but look to accelerate workforce. Okay, we're going to look to add jobs and add different economies and upscale mid-career, not just pre-K to PhD, but mid-career level as well. And everything that we look to do is based upon being able to generate societal impact innovations that directly affect workforce development, training, education, and economic development. This is an opportunity that we as industry leaders saw for the state of Nevada to be able to leap into different areas where we may be able to lead. And so some of those things, of course, water resources. How can we be the water resource capital of the world? There was other things. How can we be the advanced manufacturing gateway to the West? And the list goes on. And when you align it with these societal impact innovations and use cases, very specific use cases with accountability, KPIs, ROIs, etc., then you begin to create an economic engine that specifically supports the community, but as NVIDIA, their particular interest as well is not just supporting the community, but technologies that can expand across the United States as well as the globe. And so there was a number of areas that were indicated where we could possibly lead, and it was industry-led. NVIDIA asked it to be industry-led, and then we came back and spoke to a number of government entities. GoT was very supportive, and just working through that as well. NVIDIA finds it very interesting that Nevada really was not on their list of other states that have been to NVIDIA and have implemented this program that they provide, a three-pronged investment: NVIDIA, the government, and then a benefactor that can begin to support these types of innovations that, again, are very specific to our community here. So we're very excited about it. It's just getting started, but again, it will support a number of the initiatives that BioTech Vegas has, and anyone who's interested here, feel free to reach out to myself or Tom. Yes?
Specific question for you. Talking about going to NVIDIA, I recently went down this rabbit hole of what they're doing in Utah, and there's all this great API technology that's making it work at the government level, where these industries you talk about that are highly regulated. Is that group looked at all of what Utah is going to take off as of AI policy? Because the sandbox they created is, I'm not saying it's the right thing for Nevada, but it's an idea, and it's coherent, it's cogent, and I don't think we have that in the state.
So, great comment, thank you for that. Yes, one of our plan actually focuses on highly regulated industries that have the requirement of QA, QC, validated data, 100% result reliability, because once you have the 100% result reliability, then your AI can be innovative. Clark County Water Reclamation District is what we would consider a zero trust data operation. They can rely completely on their data first initially, and then that gets fed into their AI, which provides the innovation for mapping out our town, which is growing as it has been for a number of decades. Figuring out how the water infrastructure is going to work to support the new airport that's going in, things like that. So we do have that.
Maybe explain zero trust for the group, because the
Yeah,
ears
so
might not hear right.
So one of the biggest problems with AI, I'm sure that you all have heard, is that AI, the outputs can't be trusted. When the outputs can't be trusted, then investors can't trust our work. When the investors can't invest in our communities, in our businesses, then innovation stalls. This was also one of the biggest issues that came up at the World Economic Summit, World Economic Forum a couple of weeks ago, where AI companies were saying, yeah, you know what, AI is not the end-all be-all. We are going to need to have humans in the loop, etc. And they talked about the fact that they were now going to look to what they're calling practical adoption. And that really is about how you apply AI first, validating all of the data. The data in our corporations, in our infrastructure, like water, except for Clark County Water Reclamation District, energy, mining, etc., that data is just not ready for AI. And so it's about providing the automation, machine learning, to ensure that that data is completely traceable. Scientists and engineers know what the calculations, the math, the algorithms are that go into specific results. And so with AI, they can't see that. So if they can't see it, they're not going to widely adopt it. But once you can provide that validation, verification of 100% validation and authentication of the data, that's what we call zero trust. It aligns with cybersecurity terms, but we're looking at it as applying it in the sciences. Tom, would you like to say more?
Yeah, the reason I wanted to repeat that is because NVIDIA has 4 states that they're pretty far along. Utah, and then Empire AI in New York, Texas, and Florida. They start with Florida. But their attraction to Las Vegas, mostly, but Nevada, is the work that Rosemary's talking about with the water districts, because that it's zero trust means it's 100% trusted data. And AI doesn't have that. If you have 100% trusted data, then you can let AI go. It could run with it, right? And so that's what this example that we've done in Nevada, which everybody knows we're the best at reusing water. We keep growing. We don't have water, and somehow we still have water, right? I don't understand it myself, how. But the fact is, we have exact data out of this water collection that we know, and that's the opportunity with AI. Because otherwise, we all know, just like automated claims, you don't want to pay claims faster when they're wrong, right? It doesn't help anybody, and that's what this opportunity is. And so one of our pilots was water reclamation, which of course, because NVIDIA has the risk that they get sued. It doesn't get to do AI, and it's wrong. So that's one of it. And the other is actually interoperability with health records. And what Rosemary's helped us to do is we're getting the data directly, like you said, early imaging. We're getting the image directly from the machine, not interpreted. We're getting it directly from the chemistry analyzer. And then we have 100% correct information before it's interpreted by somebody else. And it allows a foundation for eventually research because it's trusted. And that's why Nevada has this unique opportunity with NVIDIA.
All right. I want to be respectful of everyone's time. I know we're coming up on the end of our program here. That's a great example of what we can do when we come together. And one more little plug. The LVGEA sponsors every year a booth, an exhibit at Bio International. It's a humongous conference. Sometimes it's in Boston, sometimes it's in San Diego. This June, it's in San Diego. It's very drivable for many of us. What we want to do is represent this region in a more comprehensive way. So we're hoping to get all of these companies and the expertise and the lab and the equipments and all the things that we want to show off about our region to really show the depth of our capabilities here. We want to be able to go to these conferences that way. And so when LVGEA goes to that conference, we want them to be able to pull up this information out of BioTech Vegas and use that to talk about our region. And with that, thank you so much for your time today.